are you?
Good, how you doing?
Pretty good?
So we're gonna have our cameras running from now, just so people could log in and see, just so they're not, it doesn't start up too late or anything.
Is there anybody else sitting?
How's it going?
There's nobody.
No, no,
Sorry.
yeah, you're fine, it's fine.
We're all keeping distance.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
I need your signature
How are you?
too. Hello.
Oh, you have your St. Patty necklace.
I did it, I had something hanging and it kept falling, it was just bothering me.
What is this?
This is the group affidavit for the budget, if you could just shine that. I know, it had this like little hat, like this
Oh,
St. Patrick, and it kept falling off and I just was getting annoyed.
you should have sent it out to your cat.
I know, I should have. If you would just
Yeah,
sign it.
of course.
There's a group affidavit for the budget.
Okay, so,
You can just go underneath, yeah, that's fine. Perfect, thank you so much. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
People working from home from the firm.
Yeah, yes, we've started, I mean, some people are going to the office, but everybody has access to the server and emails on the phone and computer, so. And we're doing, daily conference calls just to make sure everybody's coordinated.
Right. I don't know, someone was talking to me, go, has the internet gonna handle this? Like all these Zoom conferences, like what's gonna crash?
Right. We tried teleconferencing with Google Hangouts, but that has a limit of 10 people,
Ah,
so that didn't really work.
right. I wish they should. I would look at it.
Okay.
That would be good, yeah. Go back to
Yeah.
19, like, 90.
Right, you know, I've never had Facebook account.
Oh, I wish I didn't.
I'm like the only person.
No,
probably.
I don't have one either.
Oh,
I do not
I
have
used
one.
to.
My wife
I
has
just-
one, I just question.
Yes, I live vicariously through her, yes.
Yeah.
You know it's live streaming still right now. Okay.
We're
Just
live.
wanted to let you know. Just wanted to let you know.
Some issues with it was working.
Brad, you got a copy?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we'll go out in the hallway.
No, that's Cheryl.
Hello.
at least you can look good on the way out.
Hey Cheryl, how are you? Here we go, I'm gonna put a mic by this so that it gets picked up.
Hi, Cheryl.
Alex, you can move it wherever you want.
Oh, where's Cheryl?
Can you
Oh,
speak
Cheryl's
up
on the
a
phone?
little bit?
You can move it wherever you want.
Can you speak up a little bit?
I can do that.
Great.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you so much.
Of course.
Are you gonna give out an abbreviated?
I put there just so you got the script for her and that black part, it'll just really be a second.
Jack, are you giving out an abbreviated agenda? Or,
Yes. Did you get it?
Okay. And show,
Well, and are we going by what's in the packet, or-
I need to announce it.
or no? In other words, is there an updated one that,
This one. Can you have this one?
is it the same as the?
No.
Does everybody get it?
Yes, you got that. This is it.
This is it? Okay,
Yes.
great.
Good evening. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, Be advised that this notice of this meeting was made on posting on the bulletin board at Town Hall and serving the officially designated newspapers, a notice stating that this meeting would take place this evening at 7:30 p.m. May I ask you all to please stand to salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein?
Here.
Ms. Clupus?
Here.
Ms. Dahl Eglo?
Here.
Mr. Wasserman?
Here.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the February 18th, 2020 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, now we'll continue with the reports. As of yesterday evening, the township has declared a state of emergency. This was done as a preemptive measure to ensure that our direct responders, police, and fire departments can execute the necessary actions to continue to keep us safe and limit exposures of the coronavirus. As of this writing, there are a total of 4 cases in the township. No one at this time is hospitalized. All individuals are self-quarantined at home. We continue to act assiduously to ensure that all protocols and procedures are in place to best protect our residents. We have set up a hotline for our seniors so that we can provide them with a mechanism for essential support services, groceries, prescriptions. That number is 973-447-1223. This is for residents 70 years of age or those 60 and over with underlying health issues. Our staff will continue to monitor these individuals and check on them on a regular basis. We encourage everyone to check in on their family members and neighbors that fit this category and help out wherever you can. We appreciate that all great things come from our residents, and their efforts to help those around them are noteworthy and grateful during these challenging times. We have also mandated that only essential traffic after 8 p.m. Supermarkets and pharmacies should be conducting business. We request that all restaurant pickup and deliveries end by 8 p.m. starting tomorrow, Wednesday, March 18th, to further support the governor's recommendation to restrict travel. As of 8 p.m. this evening, the governor has closed the Short Hills Mall. Restaurants will be open only for takeout there. We've also set up an email address for all of our residents to answer any questions regarding the COVID virus. That email is covidquestions@millburntwp.org. Going forward, for regulatory reasons, the TC must meet. Our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, April 7th. However, that meeting and how it is executed will be determined in the weeks ahead. Please check our website for our ongoing updates. Let me take a moment also to ensure that Millburn Township is in good hands. Our emergency management protocols are in place. Our first responders are ready. Our police, fire, and first aid squad know the requisite procedures. Your town leadership is in place. Please continue to follow the social distancing mandates. I'm very grateful for our professional staff, and please check in on your neighbors. I'd like to leave you with a couple of quotes, and then we'll get on to their other business of my other township committee members. Every hand that we don't shake must be a phone call that we must place. Every embrace that we avoid must become a verbal expression of warmth and concern. Every inch and every foot that we physically place between ourselves and another must be a thought as if we might be able to help them should their need arise. Now on to the other committee members. Your reports, please. Diane?
No reports this evening.
Thank you. Tara?
I have no reports.
Cheryl?
Yeah, the Mountain Valley Emergency Communications Center has appointed Jeremy DeMar as the new director, as the executive director.
Thank you. Anything else?
No, for me, sorry.
Thank you.
I do have a report about our finance subcommittee, but I know that Jason will be touching on this a little later. I also wanted to thank you, Mayor, for your leadership. It's been a very, very difficult week for all of us, and I think your leadership has been outstanding. I also want to thank our, all of our first responders, our fire, police, first aid squad. I know they're ready for this, and I know your calm leadership, and Tara, and Diane, and Cheryl. I know we're all in this together. So that's my statement.
Thank you very much, Richard. Mr. McDonald?
I do not have any reports at this time.
Thank you. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we closed Town Hall to the public for this meeting. For those of you who are registered and tuned in to watch us live on the YouTube channel, please be sure to list your name and address with your prepared statement. And please be sure to send it to townclerk@millburntwp.org. We thank you for your understanding and cooperation. At this time, we'd like to take any call-in requests, please.
Mayor, just by way of update, I shared it on the TV screen, which we could see. We have about 9 viewers watching.
Okay.
The comment portion is here where the cursor is. I've been indicating to people that it will start shortly and it gets submitted here. There is about a 30-second lag between when we speak or do or say something that they'll see it. So we should just give it a minute to see if anyone submits any comments.
Terrific. I'm just going to switch for my distance glasses. One moment.
I can see the lag because my arms are still crossed there. And there, I turned around finally. That's funny. Yeah. My arms just went up.
One came in, Jamie Cerudo says, "Keep up the good work."
Thanks, Jamie. Duly noted.
We have about 14 viewers right now. A resident is asking, how do they call in?
Let's see.
This is the public comment portion.
I think to clarify, it's just this in here, in this comment section, you can list what question or comment you have. There's no call function at this time.
I wonder if we should do resolutions and give people a chance to type in.
Yeah, you want to do that?
You can always
Yeah,
move
come
on
back.
to the,
Okay.
and come back to, then close public comment. I think
Okay.
That's a good suggestion.
Okay, at this time, we'll circle back to, we'll close public comment for an interim step and return to public comment after resolutions. Thank you. The committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to the items listed on the consent agenda? Those are items 20-077 through 20-081. May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-077 through 20-081, which are listed on the consent agenda item?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Burstein? Ms. Burstein? Ms. Prukas?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Ms. Burstein?
Cheryl, are you still on the line?
Of course.
Okay. They're asking for a roll call on the consent agenda items.
Ms.
Yes.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Beaverberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Shall we proceed now with the budget introduction? Yes. At this time, I would like to introduce Jason Gabloff, our CFO, to present and walk us through the budget.
So,
First, we'll have Mr.
Yeah.
McDonald.
I'm just gonna start off real quick. Obviously Jason, the chief financial officer, will present the budget, but I just wanted to give some clarity and understanding to why we're doing this at this time, and certainly, let the committee know that we are statutorily required to introduce the budget by a certain time, and then subsequently statutorily required to adopt that budget by a certain time. This introduction is just that. After this, there's a 20-day waiting period, which then you put on for adoption and a public hearing. However, that will be very fluid during this time. Certainly, we want to make sure that we have the right amount of public interaction and presentation to the public about the budget. But at least doing the introduction at this time puts us on that path to be able to more expediently get to a public hearing whenever that may be. So Jason will go over the highlights of this introduced 2020 budget, and then certainly we're here to answer any questions that you may have at this time. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Township Committee. Try and go through this relatively quick. It's probably a little bit briefer than we normally would have done, but I think we'll get some good highlights, and then we can talk about a couple of things and kind of how it impacts where we're at right now with the emergency response. So, go ahead, Jimmy. So, this year, 2020, we're looking at a 1.07 increase on your amount to be raised by taxes. So essentially 1%, which is just about $43.5 million on the amount to be raised by taxes. That equates to a 0.446 on the municipal tax rate, which is a half a penny over last year, where we're at 0.441. The main budget drivers, pension costs, labor contracts, slight decrease in assessed valuations that has more to do with real estate market and tax appeals and things of that nature. So a slight decrease, not as huge as we've seen in past years, but hopefully that starts to settle in a little bit going forward. And then overall, an average increase on the average taxpayer, $51 on their municipal portion of the bill for the year. And this also includes adding in 4 new police officers for 2020, which was one of the goals that we've been talking about with the Township Committee. So just a quick general breakdown. We have a cap that we have to state in both for revenues and on the appropriation side. Within the cap, where we have $46,418,000, which makes up 78% of the budget. That's essentially all of our general operating expenses, includes all the employee costs, administrative costs, general day-to-day operating expenses, outside the cap, I always look at that as the things we have very little control over. Things such as pension, debt service, a few other smaller items make up about $13.5 million or 22% of the budget. So the entire budget is $59,913,510. That's a 1.6% increase on the actual budget. But on the actual taxes, it's only that 1.07% increase. So we tend to be able to do a lot. Go back. Thanks, Jimmy. On the revenues, we this year have $7.4 million in general revenues. That makes up 12% of the budget. This includes things like road opening, street opening permits, court fines, things that we get in through the clerk's office, the general day-to-day kind of items. We're using $5.1 million of the township's surplus, which makes up 8.5% of our general revenues, which we increased, was it about $600,000 or $700,000 this year over last year, to help try and keep property tax increases to a minimum. Again, the amount to be raised by taxes is $43 million. It makes up 72.5% of the entire revenue. The entire budget is funded through property taxes. The library is a much smaller portion. It's $3.3 million of taxes goes directly to the Millburn Library. The rate, again, is 0.446 or 44.6 cents. It's a 0.5 cent over the prior year, or a 1.07% increase on the tax rate. On the taxes. Just kind of another way to look at it. We always try and look at the budget as discretionary versus non-discretionary. What do we have control over versus the items in the budget that we don't have control over? So discretionary spending is about 14.75%, and then 78.26%, almost 80% of the budget is non-discretionary. These include your personnel costs, contracts, pensions, insurance, all of those items that you have to have when you're running really a service industry where you're serving people and you're not looking for a profit motive.
Jason, I'm sorry, did I miss, what was RUT? I must.
Reserve for uncollected taxes.
Okay.
Yeah. So we actually break that out under remaining items. The reserve for uncollected taxes is an amount that we have to anticipate that we're not going to collect, and that's based on history of tax collection rate, because we have to guarantee the school and the county 100% of their taxes. So the reserve for uncollected taxes makes up the gap between our collection rate and what we would actually collect, just to make sure that we have the money to make the schools in the county.
And our collection rate, I think, if I remember, was what, 99%?
Yeah, we're right around 99.28% this year. And we budget 98.7, just always back down a little bit, just in case there's changes in the market. We want to make sure that we have the cash on hand.
Thank you.
So, total tax levy. So we're the smallest portion at 23%. The school and county right now, that's an estimate. So we kind of base it on the 2% of their prior years. The school being the largest share at 48% and the county at 28.87%. We don't have the county and the schools numbers yet. So once we have that, we usually update the slide to see exactly where they're coming in.
When do you anticipate that? Just curious.
The county right now, I don't know.
Right.
Because they're obviously in the middle of the emergency response also. The school, we have to check in. I don't know where they're sitting right at this point, given that school's out and I don't know what's going on within the Office of Board of Ed. But we can reach out and see exactly where they're at. Go ahead, Jim. Just another look at the tax breakdown, just more of a pie chart to illustrate it a little bit differently. Essentially, the library is the smallest portion. It's about 2% of the whole pie. Everything else is broken out the same. 48 to the school, 28 to the county, and 21 plus the 2% for the library makes up the municipal portion. So one of the big questions is always, so what's the impact on the average taxpayer, on the average residential average residential house? So the total taxes based upon our estimate for the school in the county would be $25,218. So we kind of take a house and say, here's what it looks like, with the library being at the bottom, $434 on to the average taxpayer is what they would pay for the library. And to the town, our portion to the average taxpayer would be $5,700. Wow, that's really small. I gotta go to the paper. Essentially, this is just looking at different variables or different values of a house, what a resident would pay. The one highlighted in yellow is based upon our actual average house value, residential home value. So that's what it would look like to the average resident. If your house is more than that, obviously you pay a little bit more. If your house is less, you're gonna pay a little bit less. So that's where we come down to the increase of $51 between this year and last year. Just another look at the comparison of the estimated taxes for this year to last year. The bottom line, the 2020 estimated total tax effect, which would include our estimate for the school and county, is about 1.81%, or be about $450 for an average resident for the entire year. And again, that's until we know what the school and county numbers are. That would be an estimate. The municipal balance on that, 51.3 cents, it's less than a 1% increase to the average taxpayer this year. So what do you actually get for your dollar? This breaks down how we would break out the actual budget in terms of operating departments. So you can see general government, which is really a lot of your town hall operations that goes on in here, makes up about 15 cents on the dollar. Public safety, which includes police and fire, makes up 28 cents on the dollar. And public works and recreation is that municipal services category, is about 19 cents on the dollar. So it's just kind of a way to show what we're actually getting for and what our residents are actually getting for the work that the departments and the employees are doing in town. So we always like to try and look at our neighbors. We stripped out the names of the towns on this slide because we don't want to make anybody feel bad. Wow, that's really small too. So that's taking the top grid. It looks bigger on my paper when I print it. The top grid is just taking the tax rate of 5 similar towns going back to 2015 through 2019, showing where we stand just within the tax rate. It doesn't always give you a good picture because tax rates vary for different reasons within towns, and your rateable base really plays a lot into it, where ours is much larger than some of these other towns. So what we do is we then apply their tax rates, and we just took the 2019 snapshot to show at different property values how much our average taxpayer pays in comparison to these other communities, which are similar in a lot of ways to us. They're usually a variation of towns that we always look to, and they look at us about how we operate and size of budgets.
And that's that's just the municipal portion?
Just the municipal portion, correct. Another comparison to some of our neighbors is a debt comparison. You can see Millburn as a percentage of debt to budget, we're 3.23% debt that's actually in our budget. The industry standard, or depending on who you look at, anything that starts to creep up over 10%, the rating agencies start to get a little bit nervous about that. So we're well under, and we have a much larger capacity to debt. Then we have a much larger capacity that we never actually go to because we don't want to put the taxpayers necessarily on the hook for a large amount of debt. There are reasons sometimes for these other communities as to why they're there, and without going through the list, I could tell you which ones were which by looking at the numbers. there are sometimes reasons where you do that, but when you're starting to see large numbers of debt and debt service starts to drive your budget, that's where we get concerned. So we've always tried to manage the debt to what we can actually afford within the budget.
So like one might be floating a huge bond for a huge municipal project.
Correct, correct. And yeah, sometimes there's reasons because you can't pay $30-40 million for large projects. So
Right.
you issue the debt with the idea that you're going to get back down to those levels.
So just to jump in again, I think that certainly for a next step type of thing is that this presentation, as well as the budget document itself, will be posted to the website directly after this meeting, so that the public can continue to view that. Again, not sure when that public hearing would take place, but certainly the materials will be available to them. And I think, we just need to be cognizant too at this time, and knowing what we're all going through, that there may be, although I don't necessarily anticipate it this time, but certainly the situation that we're in, there may be adjustments necessary for the budget. However, I think that Millburn has always been in a really good financial position. We've prepared for not only our OEM directors and our staff for something like this, but we've also prepared financially for something like this and the ability to respond effectively. So, and I think that this budget introduction is just that. The word is out that it's there, and that certainly the residents will be able to view that. And if the township committee has any questions for Jason or I, be happy to answer them.
And I would like to point out that Committeewoman Eglo and I sit on a finance committee, and we went through the budget with Jason carefully, and I'm very happy that as part of the budget that we'll be adding, as you mentioned, 4 police officers, and I think there's also upgrades to the fire department. That I'm really thrilled about, that we're going to have that as part of the township.
Yeah, certainly, and Committeeman Wasserman and Committeewoman Aglow, I appreciate, the work on the budget as well, and one of the things that wasn't mentioned necessarily in this presentation, we'll probably get more in depth in, is the capital budget, which we're allocating $1.7 million to make sure that we can get those upgrades at the fire department, in our engineering and our stormwater systems throughout the township, and certainly getting a bit more aggressive about the roadway resurfacing projects and stuff like that. So.
I just have one final one. Alex kind of talked to it. Financially, I just want to make sure that, and I think the Township Committee understands that, but for the residents, we are in a very good financial position. So in terms of dealing with emergencies, whether it's been this or other emergencies that we've had, we are financially in a position that we can respond and allow our first responders to do their jobs and not have to be super concerned about where the money's coming from.
Great.
So can I ask a question? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, by all means.
Okay, good. Was any thought, I don't know when this budget was finished, the work on this budget was finished, but I think we are now facing economic strife for many of our residents, and I think the economic picture looming ahead of us is questionable. Has any thought, or was any thought given to a flat budget this year?
So, this is Alex to answer that. I think that the work on this budget was completed prior to this situation occurring, and I think that's why I made the statement that we're introducing as we have to statutorily, but there may be additional work that needs to be done on the budget, certainly.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the committee? And then I have a question. We could start.
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay. Richard, do you have any other additional questions about the budget?
No, I just want to point out that I think Jason touched on this, that the way the budget is right now, the increase for a average house, how much would the increase, Jason, be for an average house?
On the municipal rate, it'd be $50.
About $50 on
Right, but that's
average.
municipal. Overall, it's
Just Right.
Overall could
It's
be
about
more.
450.
450 based
Right.
on the estimate of the county and the school.
And I think, you know, and to be clear, that those are just estimates. and,
Right.
You know, we're not sure where those numbers would come in
Right.
at this point.
Right.
But it's a safe guesstimate to say somewhere around,
Yeah.
right.
We're usually first to introduce our budget, so we apply a 2% assumption to those two other budgets.
Okay.
Okay. Tara, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay, I just have one question.
Sure.
Can you just walk us through this parking utility? How it, what the salary and wages are and these kind of other expenses?
Yes.
And kind of just
Yeah.
talk about
Yes.
what constitutes the parking utility
So
and,
the
please.
parking utility, when it was formed for a very specific reason, and it deals really with the work that gets done on parking. The parking deck, it was really built around making sure that we can afford the parking deck and not put the debt on the back of all the taxpayers. It's paid for, and that's really what that budget's about. It's paid for strictly through the revenues we collect from parking, from meters, from permits, and what other fees we'll get in. So the salaries and wages are basically split out. We cover portions of police from the traffic bureau since they oversee all the parking functions. The parking enforcement officers get paid out of there. And then we take a portion of salaries out of the operating budget and move it to the utility for the tax collector's office, for my office, for the administration office, so that we can actually try and really allocate what the actual costs are. The operating expenses deal with a lot of the day-to-day things that they do. That's how we pay for the pay stations. There's a wireless component to that, so that we can get the reports back through a central server. The maintenance on those items, the paving and line striping for parking lots is really what most of that budget's, and obviously the maintenance with the parking deck, and then the debt service for the parking deck.
So the debt service for the parking deck is included in that?
Not in the operating, it's in the overall budget.
Okay.
Yeah, I jumped ahead.
Okay, so expenses is pay stations, maintenance, any kind of road repair, striping, maintenance of all the parking lots?
Yep.
Lighting?
Yes.
That would all be included?
Yes.
Great. Any other questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you.
great. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve Resolution 20-083?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Delightful?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Luther?
Yes.
Thank you.
So as we discussed, the 2020 budget presentation will be scheduled for the April 21st meeting prior to scheduling the public hearing. And if there's any other additional comments on that, on the budget, that will be scheduled for the 21st. This will be posted on the township website as well. At this time, is there a motion to approve Resolution 20-084?
I move that Resolution 20-084 be approved and that the Township Clerk be authorized to have the budget notice published on March 26, 2020, in accordance with law in the item, and that the public hearing and final passage be scheduled for April 21st, 2020.
I second that. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Burstein?
Hang on a second. Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Ms. Dahl-Eglo?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Luther?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2550-20, and this is the ordinance amending and supplementing Chapter 7, Traffic Section 7-29, speed limits of the revised general ordinance of the Township of Millburn. That public hearing is scheduled to be carried on April 21st, 2020. Due to the emergency circumstances, I'd like to make a motion to carry the public hearing of ordinance 2550-20 to our next regular township committee meeting scheduled for April 7th.
Second.
Roll call,
Did you
please.
say I'm sorry.
I'm
7th?
sorry,
1st?
correction, April 7th. April 21st.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Second.
So just to be clear, the motion is to carry ordinance 2550-20, amending and supplementing chapter 7, traffic, section 729, speed limits of the revised general ordinances to April 21st, 2020.
Correct.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Did you have a motion in a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Cheryl was second.
Cheryl was there.
Ms. Burstein?
Yes.
Ms. Krukus?
Yes.
Ms. Ball-Egla?
Yes.
Mr. Wasserman?
Yes.
Mayor Lieberberg?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are we moving on?
Yes, ordinance 2554-20, Ms. Dahl-Eglo is scheduled to sponsor that ordinance.
I would like to present ordinance titled 2554-20, calendar year 2020, ordinance to exceed the municipal budget appropriation limits and to establish a cap bank. I don't have an explanation for that, I apologize.
You can ask Jason for that.
Jason, can you fill in for that, please? Thank you.
So, the cap bank, and I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but essentially the idea behind the cap bank is it works as an insurance policy for the township. So the cap for this year on the appropriations is 2.5%. By statute, and upon passing the ordinance, we could move only if we needed to 3.5%, which we don't need. We're well under the 2.5% on the appropriations. What happens, though, is it sets up a bank that allows us in future years, and it lasts for 2 years, that if we needed to exceed the appropriations cap, whatever limit is set by the state, then we have a bank to allow us to do that. And the reason for it is when you're dealing with emergency situations, so that you don't have to